I'm Kevin Coleman with Football Guys, and today we're going to be talking about the Dynasty quarterback landscape. So every week it seems like this landscape is changing and shifting. We have different player performances that shot down the board. We have injuries. We have all kinds of things going on. In this episode, we're going to go over rankings. We're going to go over tiers and mocks, landscape for next season, buys, sells, and incoming rookies. We're doing it all for you here at the Football Guys channel. Let's dive in. All right, let's get into it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take you through everything, but the first thing we got to talk about is our rankings. So what I did is I compiled the top 24 quarterback rankings on our site. And if you don't have a membership, you definitely should get one. And it's going to go through the Dynasty quarterback rankings for our analysts there. Now, here are the first, when we're looking at the top. Okay, so and I think there's a clear tier. So when we go through these guys, I wanted to start at the top first. So we got Allen, Mahomes, and Hurts, Herbert. We have Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Tua, Kyler Murray, Deshaun, Justin Fields, Dak, and Trevor Lawrence. Not a lot of, surprises there when we're looking at the top guys here. I mean, this is pretty much clearly the top 12, but there is a clear and defined tier between these guys. So when you're looking at the top 12, you could argue about Allen, Mahomes, and Hurts, but those guys kind of be there. I would say there's kind of a tier for Herbert, Burrow, and Jackson. I think Jackson's the most volatile in this one. I've seen him go as high as QB3 and as low as QB7. Kyler Murray's the interesting one we're going to be talking about. Where does Watson fall? But in general, like these are the top 12 that you really feel comfortable with when you're looking at startups. And we're going to kind of dive into that. Now, after this, though, it gets kind of tricky. So when we're looking at the next tier, you have Cousins at 13, Derek Carr at 14, Russell Wilson at 15, Stafford at 16, Kenny Pickett, Geno 18, Aaron Rodgers, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Daniel Jones, Jared Goff, and Jimmy. There are a ton of just volatile assets in there. When we're talking about this, what is Kirk Cousins moving forward? He's pretty much in that QB 13 range, but then what is Derek Carr? Are they going to move on? Russell Wilson, what has he done? And can he get better, right? Matthew Stafford just came out today that he could have a career-ending injury, but we don't know. You're probably not going to be able to move him off of your roster. Then you got Kenny Pickett, unknown kind of rookie. What has he done this year? Has he elevated his game yet? Geno, he's had a nice story, but can he be that? Then we just go down the board, right? And you're looking at this, there's so much validity in this thing. Trey Lance, I think, is the value here. If you're looking at value, like, hey, who can you maybe go get? But again, Trey Lance owners are not going to move him for cheaper prices than what he's probably valued at right now, right? So there is just a lot of unknowns in this area. And when we're talking about Dynasty, we're probably talking about Superflex. Superflex is the known platform, starting two quarterbacks. So that's where it gets tricky of knowing where are these guys at. So if you have two quarterbacks in this top 12, you're really feeling good about yourself. And there is some strategy going forward, especially in dynasty startups, to grab those two quarterbacks early, right? Now, let's look at that. So I'm going to go through a recent dynasty mock that we've done. Now, we're going to go through tiers too. I will say this with mocks, and I want to be very, cognitive of this. You got to be very careful with these because they can be very just different, right? No trades, these type of things. But it does give us a good view of what this landscape looks like. And I really want to show you this. So we went through a mock. Now you could pause the screen and kind of just go through it. So when we go through this mock, we have Allen, Mahomes, and Jackson there. Then you get Justin in there. He usually goes in that range. Then you have Hurts, Fields, Herbert. Fields went a little early in this mock, and I've seen him before at the 106. Then you have Burrow, and this was tied in premium. That's why you see him Pitts in the top 10. And then Prescott, Murray and Watson being at the late. I think there's a value there, right? Then you're going to have Tua, Lawrence, and Lance. I'm going to tell you right now, after Lawrence, so when we're looking at our top 12 that we just kind of looked at, you're looking at how many quarterbacks went in that first round, right? So in a Superflex mock as a dynasty manager, you got to be aware that, there is 9 quarterbacks, 10, 11, 12. So the top tier on Football Guys rankings, everything there is done at 203. If you don't draft a quarterback in that first round, in maybe like if you're in picks 1 through 5 or 6, it does not look, and based on the mocks that I've done, it does not look like you're going to get a top 12 quarterback. And I think that's one thing to note when you're looking at these. And then Russell Wilson, what do we do with Russell Wilson? He's right there in that tier, right? Like of guys that you like. Now, when you're looking at that tier break, after Wilson, there is a huge tier break. You don't see a quarterback taking that to the 4th round. Then there's Zach Wilson. But again, with what do we do with him and his categories? Like, where do we put Zach Wilson at based on what he's done? I think that was a little early, right? People are just still projecting on that name. Then he goes down to Pickett and then Cousins. And I think if you're looking at this from a perspective of like, I think you have to draft someone like Lance or someone like that for value, right? Now we have him a little low but on our consecutive things, but that guy grabbed him because he had to. Look at the tier break after Lawrence. And then he got Cousins, which I like. I think there is a good strategy there, drafting maybe Lance and then Cousins and looking for it there. But I just wanted to show you this tier. I mean, if you look at it, Rodgers going in the 6th to pair with Allen. If you're going to go win now, maybe you grab Rodgers for one more year, right? And then you have Carr out there in the 6th round, 7th round, Daniel Jones. You trust that he's coming back. Geno could be a value. Then Tannehill's in there. Jared Goff, I think, is a value because I think Jared Goff moving forward, what he's been able to do with the Lions, 5-7. He's been a top 12 quarterback. I think he's a value. Brady, will he come back another year? But I think it's good to stop, pause, look at this, and see where those tiers are. And for me, it's after Lawrence. And you have to know, I mean, I'm drafting the quarterback in that first round. I'm just going to do it because of just where you see the validity at the position. You need a top quarterback in Superflex, and you just do. Now, I want to go through the landscape. So what I'm going to do next is we're going to talk about the landscape. So let's look at the first in the AFC. So what I did here, and I went through, and shout out to John Bosch. You can find him on Twitter if you're on Twitter. He does a lot of stuff for DLF. He does some other stuff there, and he talks about, hey, knowing the landscape. So I kind of use his, and I kind of thought about it. Okay, where could this be? So if they're in red, that means that they need a quarterback moving forward next year. So in the AFC South, Indianapolis, Houston, they're going to need quarterbacks, right? And it looks like Houston's going to stir up that 101. So probably looking at Bryce or whatever. In Indianapolis, they're going to need a new quarterback moving forward. I don't think Matt Ryan's going to be the answer. We've seen that. And in New York, it looks like they're probably going to need a quarterback. What are they going to do with Wilson? I've seen Saleh talk about, hey, we're going to bring him back this year. There's a lot of question marks there, right? So probably 3. So on the bottom there, you're going to see 3. You're going to see that area where you talk about these guys needing quarterbacks. And then moving forward, Pittsburgh, what are they going to do with Pickett, right? Then you have Tennessee. Tannehill has been benched a couple times this year because of blowouts. Are they really moving forward? Is Malik the answer? I don't know. We've seen him play a couple times. I don't know if that's the answer there. And then Las Vegas, what are they going to do with Carr? I mean, there's talks. They've been playing a little bit better, but I think there's some question marks there. Denver, the money sign is there because Wilson is owed so much money. He has to come back. I don't see any other scenario there. If he wasn't, though, that would be definitely red or yellow just based on his play. And in Baltimore, I think he has a question. It's not on there, but what are they going to do with Lamar? We haven't seen this. He's injured now. Like, there's some question marks there, but there's 3 for sure openings there with a possibility of 6, probably 5. Pittsburgh is kind of there with Pickett. I think they're going to see what they have in him, but we've seen teams before, like Arizona and stuff, pull the plug. I think Pickett's played well enough to not be in that category, but I just wanted to highlight it. Now, let's look at the NFC. Talking about the NFC, there's a lot more question marks. So Atlanta needs a quarterback. I don't care what Arthur Smith says. They need a quarterback. Carolina needs a quarterback. New Orleans, they probably need a quarterback. Dalton is not the answer, but they're not going to get a quarterback in that first round, right? So who is it going to be? Is it going to be Jameis? Will they bring somebody in, right? They don't have a pick in the first round because they traded it for Olave. So those are those areas that you have to question. Tampa Bay, they're in yellow because what is Brady? Will he come back? We don't know. We don't know that situation when it's going to be, but they have to be highlighted. The NFC South could be looking at 4 different new quarterbacks next year, or is Ritter going to be the answer in Atlanta, right? Then you have Washington. They probably, unless they bring a Heineke, whatever they're going to see there, I think that they're going to be in the market for another quarterback like they always are every year. So there's 4 for sure teams probably looking at a quarterback. So you're looking at 7 teams right now in the NFL that need a quarterback or going to have a new quarterback under center. And then you have Tampa, like I said. Then you have New York. Are they going to bring back Daniel Jones? Will they go draft a quarterback? Will they bring maybe Jones back on a limited deal? Maybe a 1 year. Maybe they franchise him, those type of things. Then out west, LA, like I said with Stafford, he could be looking at a career-ending injury with his bruise on his spinal cord. Then you have San Francisco. What are they doing? Is Trey Lance going to be there? Is Jimmy going to be there? Obviously, Jimmy's out for the year now. So how do they kind of broach that area? Seattle probably going to keep Geno with what his contract is and what they can bring him back in. And they probably are competing for that playoff spot. Can they get a playoff? They'll probably bring him back, but I think they're in the yellow because there's a stopgap quarterbacks. And in Dynasty, you're projecting forward, right? All right, stopgap. So if you're looking at, hey, how can I get out of these guys? These yellow teams are a good way to kind of look and say, maybe I should move off of these guys right now, depending, right? Green Bay, what are they going to do with Rodgers? Will Rodgers leave? I know his contract makes that difficult, but then what is Jordan Love? Like, maybe that's an interesting add in a quarterback. So if you're looking at just from a perspective of who's out there right now, he could be out there. Then you have Detroit. Detroit, I think, is going to keep Goff. But again, you want to highlight these guys because you're looking at the landscape of maybe they move on after this next year, right? What is Goff going to get you? Can he get you into the Super Bowl? What can he do, right? So you're projecting there. So that's the landscape. Now, what I want to do, like I always want to do on this channel, is give you guys actionable content. So let's talk about the first thing, Dynasty Buys. So here are some guys that I want to go through that I think you should be getting. Now, if you follow the channel long enough and talked about it, I've been on Tyler Huntley before he started for Lamar. I've highlighted Baltimore Ravens on Footballguys' website for their team profile. I was responsible for the Baltimore Ravens, and I said, hey, you can go get him. He is so cheap. So think about this. The reason why we're talking about buys is because we just went through the landscape. Those teams are going to need a quarterback. Now, he's a restricted free agent, so Ravens can match, but will they match, right? Will Lamar leave and he steps up? I think they're very comfortable with Tyler Huntley, and he's a very cheap asset right now. So recently, trades that he's gone for in a Superflex league, 23 third is all that he went for straight up. If you can go add a Superflex piece like this based on that Dynasty landscape, you're probably going to get perceived value back. Go check and see if your Dynasty roster has some draft picks that you can use, right? Kareem Hunt, he went straight up for Kareem Hunt, a declining asset. So these are things that you can look at to try to, hey, further and in. Other guy that I think is going to be a good buy right now is Jared Goff. His perception is he's not good, but in this team, he has looked good this season. Top 12 quarterback. We've seen his finishes, and he is pretty cheap. So he got paired with Rashad Penny for Mike White, Alexander Mattison, and George Pickens. I love George Pickens, but if you need a quarterback in a super flex mode, Jared Goff and Rashad Penny is a good, hey, coming back. Give me Goff. Give me that top 12 guy. Get rid of Mike White. Mike White did not look good last week, right? Another deal that I really like for Goff that I think that it came capable of, a Jared Goff in a third for a second. So maybe you go get him. You go trade a late second. You need that second quarterback in this title chase and go get a Jared Goff. I think that is a very, very doable trade. And then the next one I think is a value just based on mocks, startups. Everything that I've done is Kyler Murray. Look at what Kyler Murray's been able to do. He got traded recently for Ramondre Stevenson and a 23 first. If you can go get him for a 23 first, a late first, and in Ramondre Stevenson, I'm going to do that. Keyshawn Boutte just dropped out of the draft today. LSU wide receiver. We're going to see some guys opt out that we're not used to, and those 23 firsts are going to decline in value just a little bit. So go do it right now, right? That is kind of where that value is at for Kyler. Kyler is not being valued as a top dynasty asset. There are tons of assets out there where you can see Murray getting traded for a first and just a third level asset, a wide receiver, something like that. I think the opportunity to go buy Murray now is important because I think his coach Kingsbury is going to be gone. I think they're going to revitalize that offense. He still has Marquise Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Rondale Moore. We've seen those pieces. Murray might be the cheapest top 8 quarterback you can go grab right now. And I think it is a time to do it. Now, let's go to sells. So let's look at our sells. First one's Derek Carr. I do think that it's time to get out of that Derek Carr stuff. And the reason why is just because I don't trust them moving forward. I think he's just too much of a volatile asset. He's someone that I'm looking to get off my rosters. Now, some things that you could probably maneuver and go get that I've seen recently. So Derek Carr got traded for Tom Brady, Isaiah Pacheco in a third. If you believe Brady's going to come back next year or you're competing for a championship this year and you can go get Brady right now, who is, again, kind of a volatile asset, but you getting Pacheco a third, you getting that value back. I don't hate that deal, right? He got traded with Lance and Bateman for Tua and Antonio Gibson. Again, Tua has proved himself kind of as being that quarterback. If you can go get Tua back in Dynasty, that's great. I love to leave Lance off that deal, but if you can do it there, I would be happy to do that. Now, Derek Carr also got recently traded for 2 firsts. If you can get 2 firsts for Derek Carr, obviously it was a quarterback needy team and they needed to go get it. That's the kind of deal that you do. Now, another one. Lamar Jackson. Now, this might be, I think we have to have some conversation with Lamar where he's at. I like Lamar, but he just gets value too high. And again, this is all about value. So again, value-wise, recent deal that just got done. Lamar, Dolchitz, and Cooper Kupp. So Cooper Kupp's injured. They have Lamar and Dolchitz there. For Jalen Hurts, Tyler Lockett, George Kittle, and the 24 first. That's value. Go attack it. Go get it. Lamar Jackson and a second for Justin Herbert. If I can go get Herbert on my dynasty team, I think I'd rather have that moving forward than Lamar because of the contract issue. I know he has that, but consistently, when you look at the numbers, Justin Herbert is more consistent. So is this a time to go out there and go get it, right? I think those are the areas of like when you're selling Lamar, go get don't settle. Go get a top 6 asset if you can, and maybe get something else. So someone might value Lamar at a top 3. You value him at 6 or 7. Go get someone above that, and then go get an asset with it. And that's kind of how you would look at these. So those are my dynasty buys and sells. Now, incoming rookies. So we always got to project forward. We're going to be doing this rookie stuff. We're going to be doing dynasty values, all of that. Here are some rookies that you need to be aware of. Bryce Young coming, predominantly kind of being mentioned as being the quarterback one of this class. There was his numbers last year. He's been very good. There's someone that's going to take somebody's spot out there, probably Houston somewhere, right? So projecting forward, we know one of those spots that we talked about earlier is going to be taken by him. Then we have CJ Stroud. He has not been high up on numbers that we've seen. It's kind of a top 20 asset right now as far as dynasty wise in the draft, right? So what is CJ going to be? But we have to mention him because of how good he has been in the past. So we're looking at CJ here. I do think that he's going to step in and probably be a starter wherever he goes. Carolina, some of these guys. So we got to know that there's probably a spot. And then 2 guys to watch. Anthony Richardson just declared today, 6'2", 236 kid. Everybody's going to comp him to Cam Newton. He could be that. He definitely has potential there. And then Will Levis from Kentucky. He has tools, but will he get drafted in the first round? But those are 4 guys right there that could get drafted based on quarterback need, based on those tiers. So I appreciate you guys tuning into the video. I hope this helps. When we're looking at Dynasty Landscape, you have to project, get your rankings, find those tiers, find where the value's at, and go through it. Pause it. Hey, where can I make some adjustments? Where can I get younger? And who can I get off of right now because of that projection of what's coming forth? And go find those Dynasty buys that you can maybe get, especially on teams, those stopgap quarterbacks that you need the value, and go grab them. And check out what our rankings on Footballguys. So hit that like and subscribe button. Let us know in the comments. What do you think? Where do you feel like these tiers are? Who's rated too high? Who is low? And don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Appreciate you guys. I'll check you guys next time.